Hello, everyone, and welcome to another special edition of the podcast. And it's not really a special edition, it's more like the special event that's going on. And we are in episode 2. Last week we talked to org owner the King Cooter. He's the org owner of the King Court. And this week I have an extra special guest. It is Poe. Poe is the org owner of the Underworld. Poe, why don't you say hi?
Hello. Thanks for having me.
No problem. So this is your second year. I keep saying year. Whenever I talk about season in the QSL, I always say first year, second year, stuff like that. I
It's
don't know.
easy to do.
Oh man, is it ever? Um, so just this is your second year now as an org owner, and in your second year, last year was interesting. You had a couple teams that were both right on the cusp of playoffs. You had some ups and downs, a little bit of tumultuous times. Um, but this year, and this year in particular, um, I thought you had a pretty good draft going on. Um, just why don't we talk about the season 4 draft? You managed to pick up an Amar, sub killer who is still reputed in QSL to be a very very good soul laner. But just if you have thoughts on a draft, maybe some insights. How do you draft? What's your perspective on the draft? Just a couple of things to go through. So, but what's your perspective on a QSL draft?
Sure. With draft, I'm one of the owners that I don't do the draft myself. I defer a lot to my captains. I like to choose captains who I feel are knowledgeable and know a lot of players, and also like to do research. So I'm an owner that actually talks with my captains, and we try to look at drafts, and then we both make draft boards, and then we kind of meet in the middle with our picks and things. um so a lot of credit goes to my captains, because they do a lot of research, and they'll join scrims and play with folks and just see who plays well together, who's focused on the game and wants to play. And we in the underworld, we like to think of ourselves as ones who like to have happy smite and get along. As much as we want to win, we like to draft players who get along and have fun playing together. They have a good time, whether they win or they lose. Are they going to have a good time playing together? So that's those are some things we look at when we're making our draft boards.
Yeah, we always talk about it, and I know I'm especially this first week. We talk about not necessarily the individual skill because we know we have talented players, but
Mm-hmm.
having those talented players gel together. Because Smite is a team game. It's 5v5. It's not just one person that can kind of run everything down, especially up in the major leagues where you have masters and grandmasters level players. Um,
Right.
but drafting with the view of getting along, um, are you looking more for people maybe that are friends or that have played a while together? Or are you more looking for people with similar personalities?
It's a little of both this season in the underworld. With my majors, I would say it's just a lot of players that have been around for a little bit, and they've played casuals or in houses or have been on various teams together, and had no issues with each other, and they were able to mesh together well. Same with minors. We have a couple of new players on there, and then we have some players that were actually on the Ferryman together last season. So we've got a mix of new and old in there, and they're getting along and finding a groove together. And then with the addition of the amateurs this season, that is in the underworld, that is a complete friend team. They like to play together, and they were all kind of new, and they all kind of fit in the eligibility requirements for amateurs. So that was a draft of people who are just used to playing each other and have fun playing together, and see how that works in a competitive scene. I'm kind of excited to see how it works for them. Because they play casuals together all the time, but this is a comp setting, a competitive setting. So we're going to see how that friend play style transitions into comp.
Mm-hmm. Now, I do have a real quick question. So, last year you had the Underworld with you had the Reapers and the Ferrymen. What was the inspiration behind the name the Serbs?
The Serbs. Well, kind of with the underworld, for anybody that doesn't know, I'm surprised if there's anybody out there that doesn't. In Smite, Hades is my favorite god, and he gets a lot of flack from folks, but he was the first god I learned, and so I kind of modeled my org after him. So I've just picked things that kind of go with the underworld lore, like Cerberus guards the gates of hell, and we're in the underworld, and we have reapers bringing souls in, and the ferrymen ferrying souls, and so it just kind of fit with our theme really well. And Cerberus is also a really cool god in the Smite game, so it just kind of fit.
That's awesome. So, real quick, so you've obviously been around the QSL for a good long while now. Um,
Day
being that,
one, day
yeah, day
one,
one.
founder.
Um, yeah, so for those who may not know, Poe is one of the original founders of the QSL. Her Neptune, and I was Arc part of that as well. Who's still
Yes.
around? Yeah.
Yep. Me, Ark, and Neptune are the three founders that are left.
Yep. So you guys have been around since day one, and the QSL has gone through a few different iterations of, I guess you could say, teams or manifestations of teams. So we started with you had a captain, you had a team, and then you had people that were drafted into those teams. But now you have orgs, and you have it's not just captains anymore, but it's organization owners, and then captains, and then you have multiple teams that are drafted underneath that banner. So maybe you could talk about how has the QSL progressed, and maybe as being that unique perspective of an organization owner, how do you see the challenges? How have the challenges changed from being a maybe a captain or a player to now being an organization owner, and what you feel maybe are the responsibilities of an organization owner, or how you feel maybe an org owner should operate?
That's a complicated question to answer. The change, I love the changes just from season one and season two, where it was just captains and their team, and everybody was kind of on their own and doing everything on their own as a captain. I really like the transition we took in season three to having org owners, because org owners, in my opinion, org owners should um, be looking out for the draft, helping with their captains in that, be involved together, but then, kind of be the checks and balances person. So with trades, because here in QSL, we have a lot of regulations, we try to stay um, consistent with them. So having the split between where an owner is concentrating on those regulations, like if you're trading, dropping, picking up, making sure you're fitting within all of our guidelines and regulations for the teams, it leaves the captains to um, coach or develop or just bring together their team, make sure they're getting their scrims and practice, and just making a team out of those that have been drafted. So it gives them more time to concentrate on the team and the gameplay itself, whereas the owners can take that administrative side of running teams and having to make moves, and those schedules and forfeits and points and all that. I feel it frees up the captains to do what they do and develop teams.
Well, that's great, because it seems like you have an understanding of this. The captain is much more team oriented and team focused, whereas the org is much more administrative focused. Kind of bringing in research, and the everyday little things that still have to be done. Um,
Right.
so this is so my next question for you, and this is probably going to be a little bit awkward. So for those of you who don't know, or maybe who are a little unfamiliar, but Poe and I are both part of the admin team or mod team of QSL, and I asked King Cooter this last week. I'm going to ask you this this week. But what is your view overall of the operation of the QSL? What works well? What do you really like about it? But then also, what are some of the things you don't like, or maybe some of the things you would want to change? Or, let's say we put you as the queen of QSL and you get to dictate whatever you want. What is the thing you change? What is the thing you just get rid of? So yeah, it's sort of a what works well, what do you like, what doesn't work well, what would you get rid of, and then finally, what would you change?
Um, let's see. I think we've had so many transitions from season one to now. A lot of the things I would get rid of and change, we've already gotten rid of. um, I think that the thing I would look to change in QSL is still figuring out how to mesh those upper echelon, grandmasters and masters, playing alongside in leagues with bronzes and silver players. Sometimes we still see that imbalance in how they engage each other, so we're still trying to get that harmonious balance, which can be hard to do in Smite and any kind of competitive setting. So we're still working on making it feel like a really supportive environment to our more learning players, versus our folks that have reached the top of the line in the skill levels. So that's something I'm still hoping we can figure out how to engage all the levels together a little better than we do now. I think it's way better than we were in the beginning. There's a great group of folks in QSL um, that are masters and grandmasters, and they're always offering and jumping in to coach folks or review VODs or things. So I think we're on the way. But if I could wave a magic wand, that would probably be what I would wave it over and just have that all done.
Mm-hmm.
Something I think that works really well, that's changed over the seasons, is I really liked the introduction of the waiver wire last season. I think that works well with keeping balance to teams throughout the season. If a team is struggling and they just don't know um, if they can bring someone on board, because somebody that's sitting there in the FA pool might be friends with someone else. They don't think they can get them. I think it's really helpful to a team that's having a challenging season. So I really like that change that was made. The orgs themselves, I really like as well, because I like that divide between the administrative side of competitive play and the actual team development. I like that separation. Um, I really like that we were able to add an amateurs division in, get you know, the learning division of skill levels more involved. Um, there's something really new that was added this season that I wanted to talk about too. We added the in-season free agents application, and we've seen that kind of blow up in a lot of other leagues. So even though it was really challenging for us to try to figure out how to make that work, I think we've figured out a way to make it work where it doesn't implode a team, implode a season, anything like that. So we'll have to wait and see till the end of the year, but I think we may have figured that out, and it's gonna be helpful to engage new folks coming in to the league after the draft, because I always feel so bad for folks who find us a week after or 2 weeks after the draft, and they're like, I just want to play, how can I get involved? So it gives new folks a chance to get picked up or even to sub, just kind of show themselves before the next season's prospects.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, awesome. Yeah. Um,
It's a lot. I tend to ramble.
no, that's great. No, so I mean the I mean, I would ask you, how do you think the QSL is being run? How do you think, but obviously if you didn't like the, leadership of the QSL, you'd probably just kick me out anyway. But so I'm gonna forego that question. But I do
I
have
can
this.
I can answer to that too. I think in our leadership, I really like, last season was great too. We had folks that had a lot of ideas and really helped with you know some changes, and everybody was very instrumental in that. And then now I think we've got a group that really, we talk, like, we're very present in our leadership roles in QSL. Um, we always talk everything out, and we make sure we're all in agreement, and so there's never no hard feelings of like I wasn't on board with that. So I really like our leadership in QSL just because we talk a lot. Um, I I don't see that in every other league that I've seen. Some of them have that down pat as well, and I think those leagues flourish. So I think QSL is on the path for some of these other leagues that have grown, and I think leadership is one of the important things for the ones who have grown and stayed so long. It's those leaderships talking, and no one going off and doing things on their own. So I'm really proud of our leadership. I think we are thoughtful and very thorough in anything we do. I hope we are. We're human
Uh,
though. We make mistakes too.
yeah, we definitely do. Oh man, some of us more than others. Oy. Um, so you've been around the block a few times before. You've played before. You're now an org owner. Just thoughts on what you understand as your keys to success, either in QSL or in competitive Smite in general. But in your perspective, what is the key to success? Doing well, not just maybe not even in the win and loss column, but getting better, doing well. What is your perspective in how to succeed?
For me, I think in QSL and in any league overall, I would think this would be successful in any league, but QSL is the one that's near and dear to my heart. I think the thing that's the key to success is finding a balance between competition and still having fun and being able to enjoy the people that you're playing around. Um, I don't want to say a safe place to play Smite, but just a fun place where you're not worried about coming in and playing a casual with someone or in houses. Just where folks are just here to play the game. That would be the key to success. Just making sure QSL is a place you can just come and play the game and have fun.
That would be great. And I something I want to touch on a little bit because you and I have had conversations about this before, but um,
Sure.
having this understanding that the QSL is not just a flat out competitive league. It's not just about the championship at the end, but especially now having both a minors and an amateur division. Um, Maybe your thoughts on how the QSL and maybe its structure, or even just how the community works as a way to build up players, get better, make players better players, but also maybe better individuals. How is the QSL doing the whole education thing on top of being a competitive league where there are teams and there are practices and there are scrimmages? Um, Maybe your thoughts on how the QSL does education really well, or maybe there's something you'd like to insert. Maybe there's something you'd like to do with it more than just what's being done now.
With in regard to coaching and leveling up players and learning, um, I think that's going to be our next focus on how to mold that into something more, because right now, like, what we do, we've added the amateurs division, and we try to, at least in my org, I can't speak for every org on that. In my org itself, we try to to pair some of those majors players, even some of the minors players with the amateurs players. Like we will sit and kind of watch the VODs. We're watching the games when they're live casted. And folks we're in VCs a lot in there, and they'll come in and they'll be like, "I saw you did this, and that was really good. You did that last time, but this time you turned that around and did it this way. That's really good. You're paying attention. So those are the things we do in my org itself. In QSL, we have a seeking improvement section, but it's more kind of the players going seeking advice. Like they'll add a coach or ask someone just that they've seen play and have them go into the coaching VC. So I'd like to drill down and find a way to really pair folks up, like actively. I don't know, interview or take applications or something for folks who really want to get into the coaching side of Smite, and start pairing those folks up. Like have some kind of sign up system of who wants to be a coach, what role do they want to coach in, and then on the flip side, like a sign up for players who really want to enlist a coach, and not just to ask a question in the channels for the lanes, but like really want to get paired
Mhm.
up with someone who is really interested in coaching and developing a player, and get them paired up and get them on their way to coaching sessions. So so we have things there where folks can ask questions, but I do want to find a way to develop that into more, to really pair folks up for specific lanes, and folks that they look up to their gameplay. Somebody's like, man, I want to play the role like NMR. He's on my team, so he's somebody I'm gonna use as an example. Somebody watches his gameplay and they're playing jungle or they're playing ADC, and I'd like to find a way to be able to pair a player with NMR if that's who they want to coach. But we're just not there yet. season 5.
Okay. Something else I'd like to ask is, and this is something that we sort of see other leagues struggle with, but also just in general, I know things have been a little rocky with this, but what is your perspective on casting? How does it help the league? How maybe is it, if it is at all being a detriment? But how important is casting to the QSL? How important is casting in general to competitive Smite? But then also, how do you think it helps people having their games casted as well?
I think casting games, I think, is really important to a league's success. The player, they enjoy seeing their friends, who, because we are a draft league, so we don't have pre-made teams come in. So you might have 5 or 6 really close friends, and not one of them ends up on the same team as you. So casting those gives everyone a chance to see their folks, their friends, play their matches and cheer them on, and see how they did. It also provides ways for like the amateurs players or even the minors players, watching the majors, and just learning from watching things, and then um, you know to flip that, the majors players and minors players, they're watching amateurs, and they can see what they're playing and give them suggestions like, hey, I saw you playing this and I build this on that, and just it gives a window into everybody else's gameplay, and I think that's really important to have that for engagement, amongst player to player in the league, so everybody's not just with their team, they're like still involved with everyone else.
Hmm.
um, I don't think it's a detriment in any kind of way in our casting. Like we work on it each season, and we introduce new graphics and things, and we've tried to refine our casting guidelines. We hope that, if any of our casters like ever want to try out next time, SCC is looking for some casters, or SOC, any of those. A lot of folks, they've used their casting videos from the leagues that they're in for their tryout. So we want to help them and make casting as good as possible to help them on their way to casting in the big leagues. So
That's great. So we've got a few more minutes here. And looking over some of the questions I have, some of the things we've already answered. Is there, you know what? I'm just gonna do this. I'm gonna open it up to you. I'm gonna give you a soapbox. You can stand on the soapbox. You get a couple minutes, and just anything you want to say, either to the QSL, to your team, to the listeners out there that are interested in hearing your perspective on either the QSL or Smite or something else, or as an org owner, as a mod, whatever. You have everyone's full and undivided attention for the next few minutes. So, Poe, here is your soapbox. What would you want to say to someone who is on the edge of their seat listening to you right now?
Oh, I doubt anybody's on the edge of their seat listening to me. But I guess what I'd want to say, just I appreciate everybody that comes to QSL and um, takes the time to put up their schedules and fit in league games, or even if they're just if they're not part of the draft, they're just hanging out to play in houses and casuals and making friends. I appreciate everybody's input and their engagement within the league and within the QSL community. We have a lot of great folks here. People are making jokes or sharing memes or showing their recipes. We want QSL to feel like a family and a community, and I feel like we're getting there. And we've got just so many great folks and so many folks that want to help other players learn, and it's very proud moment for me, just where QSL started and to where we are now. So I would just want to thank everybody for being here and sticking with us through the rough first couple seasons while we worked out any issues that always happens when you're starting something new. Um, just really happy for everybody that's here and has stayed and plays Smite with us, plays the Smite game that we all.
Well, I want to thank you for being with here and doing this with me tonight, Poe. You have been an absolute hoot. Um, Glad to talk to you again. This is Poe. She is a mod for QSL. She is also an org owner of the Underworld. The Reapers are her major team. The Ferrymen are her minor team, and then the amateur side is the Serbs. So keep an eye out for them in QSL Season 4. But Poe, I am glad to have you here. Glad that you were able to spend some time out of your busy day, because I know things can get a little crazy and a little hectic, and you don't always have time to play. But I'm glad you're able to be here for a little bit of time to help us out. So thank you
bet.
so much.
Thank you for having me. It was fun.
All right. And for those of you who are listening, thank you again for making it all the way to the end. I am your host, Red Sniper 23. Joining me was Poe, the org owner of the Underworld. And I want to thank you and have a good night, everyone. Bye bye.